There he is.
That's okay. I'll
We did.
I did.
Just lied to John Paul said, oh, he ain't coming.
Never telling me to
I was telling
the
the
gavel.
take that gavel, take that gavel.
Yeah. It's okay though.
Oh my gosh, come on, stop.
I'm texting Roy right now, and maybe just 1 minute. Yeah, he'll make 7, so let's just this is a technical for like your mileage.
And I dumped it out. I mean, literally, change. You know,
No, it's going to be just yeah, so this is just going to be mileage. Yeah. She's not going to play. Well, I may have a schedule for each of you.
You did. Look at this scheme over there, man.
Maybe just the thing that's all it is. But I can verify that. Yes. Yes.
So she might be catching more. I had bought tickets for a man. Wait on the corner.
Oh, Jones will show up.
Donnie, you look for me?
Stephen Jones here.
31st, 2nd, 3rd.
He was the commissioner today.
So the fourth is probably the
Commissioner Atkins, Commissioner Jones is in the back. He just walked around.
Where's Commissioner Epperson now?
I'll go try to round up the.
come on, cool. Come on, cool. Let's go, man.
Y'all ready? We're gonna kick this thing off. Mario, we're kicking off.
It's by everybody. It's the one. Have my son.
It's the wiring, not the.
All right, I'd like to call this Caddo Parish Commission work session in order. It's May 2nd at 3:35. Could we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Hopkins. Here. Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Gage Watts. Commissioner Talaferro.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Atkins.
Here.
Commissioner Chavez.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Here.
And Commissioner Epperson. All right, you've got 8 members present and 4 absent. That is a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Jones, would you be kind enough to lead us in an invocation?
Yes, sir.
And Commissioner Hopkins, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Sure. All stand, please.
Let us pray. God our Father, we thank you for life, for health, and for strength. We thank you for the opportunity to meet together and to reason together. We pray that you unite us as one, that we may do your will first and foremost and the will of the people. This is our prayer, and we pray this prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
For those in the military, active or retired, can give a hand brow salute. All else, place your hand over your heart and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. I know I could count on you at that last-minute request.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Hopkins. Mr. Clerk, do we have any agenda additions?
I understand there may be an agenda addition. We have not yet received it, so we may need to take that out of order later in the meeting, or I'm not entirely sure how.
Commissioner Chavez, how would you like to address this issue?
I'd like to make a motion to add it, and then I think our legal went to go get it. But I addressed my concerns for it. If I can make the motion now, it's just a resolution from the body to the state legislator to increase the minimum from 1 year to 5 years for individuals involved with drive-by shootings.
Just to be clear, increase the minimum what?
To 5 years.
Minimum
Prison
sentence.
term?
The minimum term for incarceration.
Sentence, okay.
And if I can get a second, I'll okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Chavez and a second from Commissioner Young. We will need to open up the floor for public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who is either opposed of or supportive of the proposed motion? If so, please come to the front.
Adding it to the agenda.
And adding it to the agenda, thank you. Seeing no one, I'll close the public meeting, and we'll have a vote. Voting on yes or no to whether we add this to the agenda.
Okay, and that is 8 in support, 0 in opposition, 4 absent to expand the agenda to include this item, and we will include it under new business as item 11.6.
11.6. All right.
And that brings us now to citizens' comments, unless there's any other agenda additions to consider. That would bring us to citizens' comments, where we do have at least 2 that we've received.
Thank you.
Anybody else who may wish to make a citizen's comment, you're welcome to fill out a comment card that are found in the foyer and turn it in over here to my left, and you will get 3 minutes, and we will acknowledge you. If you should choose, there's also an opportunity at the end of the meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. I have a card here from McQuee Jackson. Please come to the front. Hello, Ms. Jackson.
Hello, thank you, Commissioner.
Could you please remove your mask so we could hear you a little better?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Grand afternoon. My name is McKee Jackson. I'm the CEO founder of Humanity 2020 Group, which powers Operation Neighborhood Reinforcement Initiative. That American Rescue Plan Funding Committee generously recommended us for appropriated funds last year. We are a nonprofit 2-on-1 service provider. We're a Medicaid service provider. We're a behavioral health service provider. We're a licensed mental health professional. We're licensed professional counselors. We're psychiatrists. We're licensed clinical social workers, all on staff. We'll follow all guidelines of substance abuse and mental health services. Our credentials with this more than 30+ years of experience in the field, we know our industry like the back of our hands. There's no challenges too big or too small. We dedicate our utmost energy to every crisis that we take on. We now can be considered a Medicaid mobile crisis response team. Our team consists of 2 crisis peer peace practitioners, 1 drug and alcohol specialist, 1 mental health specialist. Let's get closer with the collaboration and the partnership that we have. We have Katrina Bolden, Executive Director of Superior Counseling. She has 3 locations here. Here in Louisiana, she has Sweetport, Ruston, Farmersville, and she's a true mental health specialist in the industry. 988 is one of our biggest component that really expanded us. It will allow us to be able to receive, will allow us to be able to be a service provider for 988, which is a 3-digit national mental health crisis hotline that was mandated by the federal government in October 2020. This will allow us to receive calls from national and local crisis centers, calls to and from 911, Sweetport Police Department, those that meet our criteria. These calls will be redirected to 988, then to our in-house call center. We stand here in front of you today because we need your help. We have expanded our collaboration partnership as far as we possibly can in the Caddo Parish and the city. Here's the situation. We're capable of serving Sweetport's Caddo Parish Medicaid recipients over the age of 21 and up, leaving a huge gap of uninsured and the most vulnerable citizens without any crisis management, especially our future, our children, those at risk and those under 21. With your help, we can reach those most in need together. This matter is worth considering again. A crisis plan is a very important component, time?
Yes.
Extend.
We have a motion to extend from Commissioner Talbero, a second by Commissioner Epperson.
Oh, thank you.
3 minutes, continue on.
Thank you. This matter is worth considering. A crisis plan is an important component of any community. It can act as a guide to help us quickly contain the crisis and help citizens to recover from its crisis. I'm hoping you'll consider repeating your generous contribution this year. Thank you all commissioners for taking the time to listen as we hope your votes vote yes for Operation Neighborhood Reinforcement Initiative on the streets of Caddo Parish. Our citizens need you, especially our children. Please add us on the next work session agenda. I yield back. Thank you for the extents.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you.
Susanna Polyak. Thank you for coming down, Susanna.
I am here today to talk about the gunfight and murder of a child that happened yesterday afternoon at the corner of Erie and Fairfield. To paraphrase the movie Network, I'm mad and I'm not going to take it anymore. And I don't want anyone, anywhere in this city to take it anymore. Enough is enough. I understand that I can be accused of not caring until it affected me, and that's fine, so be it. I am willing to accept all that comes with that criticism. But what I want to know is what we are going to do right now and going forward. All children should be able to sit in a car, to play in their front yard, to visit their parents at their workplace, to sleep in their beds, or to visit their grandparents and not get killed for it. We are failing our children, whether those children are perpetrators or victims. And failure just isn't an option. I live here in the city of Shreveport. I have children. I want them to come back, and I got to tell you right now, they're afraid. And I don't blame them. But I'm not here just to complain. I am ready to work. I need you to tell me what it is that you want me to do. Do you want me to pay more taxes? I will do it. Do you want me to walk the streets? I will put on my walking shoes and I will get people together. Do you want me to tutor children? I will do it. I will do it. I will do whatever is needed. But I have a request from you. We need, the commission controls juvenile justice. Juvenile justice, I know all the people who work there. I have worked with them over the years. They, to me, deserve canonization and the Nobel Peace Prize, and they ought to get them both today. They are so good at what they do, but their funding stream isn't consistent and it's small. I would ask that you give them, they don't have to worry about whether or not taxpayers are feeling rebellious and burdened and have to want to renew the millage. They just deserve more money, and they deserve to know that it will always be there. So I'm going to ask for that. And the other thing I'm going to ask is I would really like for the commission to take the lead on creating a safety commission that involves the district attorney, involves the courts, involves juvenile justice, the Caddo Parish School Board, the city council, the sheriff, the mayor, and this commission. And I would like for this safety commission to be able to gather data, to plan, to organize, and to implement. I would ask, I'm sorry, my time has expired, if I may just.
Motion to extend.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion to extend. yeah.
Thank you very much, I really appreciate it. I would like any egos and power struggles to be put aside. These are our children. And I'm willing, as I said earlier, to do whatever help is needed. If y'all need someone from Silicon Valley, I used to work in the Bay Area, I can go find some data expert to analyze this data to tell you what to do. If you want me, I used to live in New York City. Do you want me to go find a police commissioner a la Bill Bratton to help you figure out how to get this doing? I'll do it. I will do whatever is needed. But the fact is, we have to take action now. And I want you to know, the commission, if you guys take the lead, you're not alone. I had a conversation today with my former colleague, Dottie Bell of the Caddo Parish School Board. I asked her if I can quote her, and she said I could, so I'm going to. She says, "I am tired of our babies being killed. I just left CMM checking on the babies and staff. When I walked in, my heart was so heavy because a month ago it was Huntington High School. I felt the same way looking at the faces of the babies and the staff. Whatever you do, I'm in support of it. We have got to do something, and maybe what you're doing today will give it a start. I'm praying for an answer." And I second Ms. Bell. I too am praying for an answer, and I would really appreciate the commission taking the lead. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down. Okay,
Did you have any other public comments?
I have none. Do you?
I have not received any additional requests for public comment. So that'll bring us to the next section on our agenda, which is visitors. And today we have one visitor scheduled, and this is a group from the YMCA. Jeffrey Goodman is the primary presenter, and I believe he has some additional people with him as well.
Hello, Mr. Goodman.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Ms. Alexander, Mr. Last, welcome to the commission.
We're on? Okay. Thank you all for giving us this opportunity to come and speak with you today. We really appreciate it. It's a little sobering to hear Susanna, so I hate that we're presenting this today, but I feel like this is a very small part of the solution of what's happening in our community. So alongside me, I'm Jeffrey Goodman. I'm the Director of Marketing and Development for the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana. Alongside me are Gary Lash, our CEO, Misty Alexander, our Wellness Director, as well as Patrick Wesley, who is the Director of Caddo Parish Parks and Recreation. What we'd like to do today, if it's okay, is first show you a short video, then we have a PowerPoint we'd like to walk through, and then Patrick's going to say a few words.
1 second, Mr. Goodman. Dr. Wilson, I don't want to cut you guys short, but what is our allocated time here? And I'm not sure if Mr. Goodman's program fits into that time. We may need to take one or the other. How much time do we have for? for the visitors?
15 minutes.
And how long is your presentation?
Video is about 5.5, and I think I can probably blow through the PowerPoint in
Okay,
10 minutes.
great. I just wanted to make sure we were
Sure.
scheduled.
If it sounds
Mr. President,
absurd,
Mr. President.
that's what people politely told Mayor Cook when he built it. In a word, what did people say to you? You're nuts. But the mayor in his town may have the last laugh, all the way to the bank. Those 60 brand new professional grade fields are constantly filled with kids and their families.
Last year, we had just about 1.2 million visits to Grant Park, and our visitors spent $145 million in this area.
$145 million.
Yes, sir.
Decades behind other places in these type projects that can grow the game and attract outsiders to this area.
I'm currently committed to leading a tech for baseball. I play outfield and I pitch, and it makes me think that more people in our area are going to get into the game. It makes me happy because I know that people don't have to go all across the country to get a match facility. People don't have to drive 3 or 4 hours to play in a match facility to get into the game. That for me is my passion. For them, it could be. Maybe they just haven't been put in the opportunity or the position to. So I think having that, it'll bring a lot more people to the game. It'll bring a lot more fans, and it just help people out. I mean, having something to do, keeping people off the streets, it's just a fun thing to do.
If we find the right group of people that are in it just for the kids, to make sure the kids get developed and able to get off the streets and attract the lower financial class would be tremendous. And this is a great start for Caddo Parish and moving in the right direction.
Oh, absolutely, because you've now got a really nice facility where you operate a strong rec program. We fully expect that when this thing gets built that you're going to see an explosion in numbers for Shreveport Little League. And then you've got, you know, the money that comes in through those tournaments on the weekend that are outside of Shreveport Little League, but add that as other ways to support, whether it be through coaching, development, clinic-based stuff for the kids that are in your rec program. You not only increase the numbers, but I think you increase the quality of baseball, which and the experience that those kids have, which just makes them, you know, better overall rounded kids.
Having turf artificial playing services will always give you the upper hand on being able to develop youth, use it for different reasons outside of baseball and softball, but also give you the opportunity. You don't have to worry with having to deal with Mother Nature in the sports of softball and baseball.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you talk about, you know, Sterlington, we played a bunch over there. There's not a hotel within 20 miles of that ballpark. You got to go all the way to Monroe. So we had the existing infrastructure, hotel room capacity here that would attract these places, you know, that are out of town. Plus, I think we're a lot more centrally located. Where you think of Sterlington or Ruston are kind of on that eastern edge. Well, you know, you've got teams coming in, you know, every weekend to one of those facilities, whether they be from South Arkansas or from East Texas or Central South Louisiana. It's a lot easier to get to Shreveport. There's more for those people to do in the area when you compare it to a Ruston or Sterlington or Natchitoches. And those ballparks are staying full with tournament play every single weekend. So I have no doubt.
I feel like Caddo Parish is missing out. We travel
border to border, state to state, and I look at the economic impact that those tournaments are making on different cities. I'll give y'all an example. We traveled to Hoover, Alabama 2 or 3 times last season, and the big one was for the WWBA, and it was 300 teams. Every hotel was packed, every gas station, every restaurant for an 8-day tournament. And it was just, not only was the Hoover Metropolitan Ballpark packed, every high school was packed, so everybody got a piece of the pie during that 8-day stretch. Because everybody can't afford to pick up and fly and go to Florida to play or to drive over to Hoover, Alabama. But if we have a nice facility here, then that kid that doesn't have the means to go there, he could play right here at home and, maybe spark somebody's eye, somebody's interest.
But it gave me an opportunity to develop as a player, gave me an opportunity to play at the college level, had my degree paid for, and it gave me a chance to go into a profession to help young men and young women outside of baseball and softball, but in general, to make sure that we have better kids for society.
For the kids, for the game, and to help us compete with other metropolitan areas in the state to beat us to the punch on
this. So we're here to talk about the youth baseball and softball complex the YMCA is developing. You can see here on the screen the current complex we have. This is immediately adjacent to the BHP YMCA building off of Knight Street. That's a BHPY in the top part of your screen. This complex today is the home of Shreveport Little League Baseball and Softball. The facility opened a little over 30 years ago and has remained virtually unchanged ever since. The main reason for that is that for the majority of that time, a local family owned the land and leased it to Little League, and Little League understandably was hesitant to put much real money into it from fear that this family might have a change of heart. But all that changed a couple years ago when the YMCA, through a significant amount of effort, was able to obtain about $1.5 million through the state's capital outlay to purchase that land. And so we now own it, and for the first time in the history of this complex, it makes sense for some significant investment to take place. Once we bought the land, we then spent the next 18 months or so going through a needs assessment to try and determine the best use of this complex. And what we came up with is this. And so what you see here is the very first tournament grade youth baseball and softball complex in all of Caddo Parish. In order to make this tournament grade, we need to add additional parking. We need to completely regrade the entire complex to significantly improve its drainage capabilities. And most important, we need to place artificial turf down on all 8 fields. One of the things we've learned in going through this process is that the single most important factor to these tournaments when they're trying to select a location is whether or not that location has artificial turf. If you don't have artificial turf, you're not even in contention or up for consideration. Some more information. This is a $7.5 million project. We've raised a little over 2.3 to date. As I mentioned earlier, the existing complex is a little over 30 years old and no significant capital improvements have been made since it first opened. The Shreveport-Bossier Sports Commission recently conducted an economic impact study on the project and estimates a $5 million economic impact in year 1. All of you have a copy of that study, but I did want to point a couple things out as it can be a little confusing. So the study that you have only represents one tournament, but if you read through the summary documents that all of you also have, you'll see that we're projecting to host 20 tournaments in year 1. Therefore, in order to arrive at a true estimated economic impact in year 1, you should take all the numbers you have from the Sports Commission and multiply each of them by 20. There are currently about 50,000 people a year that use the facility. That's Little League baseball and softball families, parents, and the players. Once the new complex opens, we estimate more than 340,000 visits in year 1, and for that number to continue to increase in years 2, 3, and 4. Shreveport's and really all of Caddo Parish is falling behind a lot of other cities in the state in terms of capitalizing on this booming travel sports industry. This isn't only happening in baseball and softball, it's also happening in basketball, volleyball, soccer, lacrosse, and a number of other sports. By building this complex, though, we plan to address the problem as it relates to baseball and softball. In terms of how we plan to raise the remainder of the funds, we plan to do it through governmental agency support from local foundations and by meeting with private and corporate donors. When we came up with the plans to build this new complex, we knew the economic impact was there. We knew this would be the way for the parish to begin capitalizing on this booming travel baseball and softball market. We also knew there were significant benefits from a quality of life standpoint, that this would benefit our families who are developing baseball and softball players from not having to travel as often and not having to spend as much money elsewhere, because we had finally built a tournament grade complex here. What we weren't as aware of, and what we've only recently come to learn, is that there are numerous other benefits to the parish this complex will also have. And Patrick, when he comes and speaks up here in just a minute, will speak to that, but I did want to mention a few things. So we've had a few meetings with Patrick and learned that he currently oversees more than 1,300 young baseball and softball players in the Caddo Parish Parks and Recreation Leagues. Those kids do great when they're very, very young, but they struggle to stay involved past the ages of 9 or 10. Patrick explained to us that he simply doesn't have the resources, the structure of the leagues to keep these kids as they start to age up. Patrick believes, though, that by working together and by leveraging and utilizing this new complex, we'll be able to keep these kids engaged well into their teens, and some of them into high school, college, and even professionally. By building this new complex, we fully expect to see a significant rise in the number of Caddo Parish kids playing baseball and softball. By working with Patrick, that increase will occur not only in the areas of our community that already have access and exposure to the game, but we'll be able to bring the game to the underserved areas of our community and create new opportunities for those who are currently dropping off by the age of 10 and for those who haven't even been exposed to the game in the first place. Also, as mentioned in the video, by creating this new source of revenue through these tournaments, we'll be able to dedicate new funds to the development of our young baseball and softball players. In other words, by taking a portion of those tournament profits, we'll be able to utilize them to develop better coaching, to offer more clinics and skills-based training for our kids, and most important, to find more ways of connecting the games of baseball and softball to our entire Caddo Parish community. Lastly, we've always looked at this as a multi-use complex. So when we're not using it for, or when it's not being used for baseball and softball practices and games and tournaments, we plan to utilize it to host periodic community health and wellness fairs, movie nights, family nights where families can come, participate in a variety of different activities in a safe and controlled environment. And we plan to leverage our more than 40 community organization partnerships to offer additional events like activities around corporate team building and company softball games. So that's really the overview we wanted to provide to you today. Again, thank you all so much for this opportunity to come and present to you. And now I'd like to hand it off to Patrick, who's very generously agreed to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman.
Good afternoon, Commission. When Jeff came to me about this project, I was very excited about it because if you look in my budget, the budget book for 2023, our capital improvements, I was going to ask you for a feasibility study to see where we could identify a sports complex, where it could be located and how much it would be costing. And that's going to cost us about $200,000 to $300,000 just to get that information. And when Jeff came to me and said that we already have a site that's already structured and the infrastructure already there, we just need the parish to partner with us to make this happen, I just thought it was a win-win. So when Jeffrey told me that we were bringing this to the economic committee, I thought it was great because when we talk about economic development, the youth sports tourism industry is economic development, plain and simple. This is a $19 billion industry annually. Youth sports is $19 billion. If we're not getting a piece of it, somebody else is getting it. So why not Caddo Parish? Why not Shreveport? It's evident the town of Sterlington, not city of Sterlington, the town of Sterlington, investing $11 million for a 10-field complex. The city of West Monroe investing, they'll open up in spring, West Monroe, $18 million indoor sports complex, 8 basketball courts, configure it to 16 volleyball courts or pickleball courts. You can bring in wrestling, you can bring in cheerleading, dance lines. City of Bossier, 10, 12 field complex, right here across the river, full every weekend. City of Ruston, invested $40 million. Over 20 years, they're expecting to make $1.2 billion. This is the city of Ruston. So why not Caddo Parish? Why not Shreveport? So from economic development, it makes sense. Youth sports tourism is economic development. From baseball development, it just makes sense that we have to have infrastructure to develop our youth. Okay, we don't have that at this time. We have access to Head Start students, elementary students, middle school students, but we have to have fields to play the games. We have to have fields to develop them. Baseball is like golf. Okay, you got to swing that golf club regularly to be good or decent. Baseball, it has the same skill set that you have to swing that bat regularly to be good. And you have to have a feeder system. So this gives us like an academy. This gives us an academy so we can funnel kids from 3 to we call it wee ball to t-ball to our live on pitching. We can develop. We can have some things to do for our kids in the inner city. Right now, we start with t-ball, then it drops off because we don't have a feeder system. We don't have the infrastructure in place. We don't have a instructional academy to do that. This will provide that academy setting for us. And finally, and try not to be redundant, YMCA, they have the history of developing projects like this, from raising the money to partnering with good partners and making sure that not only it's successful, but it's sustainable for years to come. And I just think this is a win-win situation for each and every one of us here today. But most importantly, the future for our kids. And believe me, if we're not going to be doing it, the cities around us and the towns and the municipalities within the Dallas Metroplex, East Texas, Ruston, Natchitoches, they're all investing, making these type of investments, and I think we should be doing this also. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
You got it.
Mr. Wesley. Any questions? I see Commissioner Epperson.
Yes, sir. Mr. Goodman,
Yes, sir.
how many and where are the current Ys located in Shreveport, Caddo, Bossier? And if you would you name the most recent ones that was built?
Sure. Yeah, so obviously we have the downtown facilities built in 1924 and served the community since that time. We opened up the BHP YMCA in 2017, therefore we closed at Broadmoor. We opened that in March 2017. We're working on a facility in South Shreveport, close to, in the development at Forbing. And that should be open in about 10 months, and that's where we are at this point, serving the community.
Okay, in your PowerPoint, I noticed that the gentleman, I think was a coach from Alabama A&M, he stated where I guess they had facilities that were not in close proximity to hotels, which would make it conducive for people traveling in tournaments and things of that nature. Last week I did a proposal to some businesses and realtors and interested community persons within the West Shreveport, West Caddo area. Within a 4.5 to a 5.5 mile radius of major interchanges within West Shreveport and West Caddo, there's about almost 300,000 cars that travels through there, each day. and within a 30-minute radius, drive radius, if you put a pinpoint at the intersection of Pines Road and I-20, there's another little over 300 and something thousand population within that radius. Also within that particular area, if you would take from Cluj Pines Road, where Walmart is located at the intersection of Westport and Cluj Pine Road, and on the north side of I-20 at the intersection of Industrial Loop and Greenwood Road, where Industrial Loop dead ends. And if you go east on I-20 to Buncombe Road, there are 10 hotels. 10 hotels there. Within less than a 3-mile radius, if you put a pin within I-20 and the Pines Road area, you have the complex that's already in place. What is it, Cargill Park?
Cargill.
A tremendous anchor. Also within the West Shreveport, West Caddo area, there's a tremendous amount of land that's just ripe and open for development. And I would love to see a facility, what you have in mind now, just a sports complex built within that area. And I think the parish even has a property over there, tremendous amount of property that's ripe for economic development. Off of West 70th, west of the Prolec GE plant, Shirley Francis Road, west of the our compactor site, off Anton Boulevard, on further down West Shreveport toward Greenwood. I just think that we need some development of that perspective as to what you're proposing here today within West Shreveport, West Caddo. It is right. We just opened up the new Resilient Technology Park, which AEP is going to be anchoring that, the first tenant there. It's over almost 300 acres, putting in infrastructure. I think it's a $100 million project. Housing is exploding within that area. Jefferson Page Road, you go up Jefferson Page Road from Pines Road to Billing, go down Shirley Francis where Simpson runs parallel to Shirley Francis in Buncombe, they're building. Deer Creek is building, plenty of land for growth. Are there any other entities, say the city, public or private, that are going to contribute to this project or have committees?
We're planning to go to the city. We haven't yet, but we plan very soon to go to the city. We'd also like to visit with the school board. We've already received money from the state, obviously, to purchase the land.
How much you received from the state?
We received, it's almost 1.5 million. It's, I think, 1,445. And you have the exact amount in the application that we provided, but very close to 1.5 million.
And does the Y own that land now, just to clarify?
Yes, sir.
That sure would be nice if that could be put out in West Shreveport, West Caddo.
Can I say one other thing to that, Commissioner? I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, I mean, you know, we have nothing right now to put us in the game of this booming travel sports industry. So this is the first step. As I mentioned in the presentation, we're falling behind in so many sports in so many areas. So we would love to prove out that this works and do it some more. And we would love to do it in other places. We need a lot of economic impact here.
West Shreveport, West Caddo. If I could move on, I think Mr. Wesley mentioned feasibility study. All right, what is it, $250,000 for somebody to tell us whether we need a sports complex? And when you pass all of these existing parks that's in place right now during this time of the year and through the summer, they are packed. T-ball, Little League, they're packed. Beer Cockrell is packed. I don't think we need a feasibility study to tell us that when we got a population that we're looking at. Got 3 major schools within that area. Greenwood is boasting. That's all I have. I just wanted to share that. You know, it appears as though every time something's coming up, it's the areas of West Shreveport and West Caddo, they're overlooked. And recreation isn't anything new that when we had the Cedar Grove Ride, for some of you that may know history, we had a citizen committee that got together. And one of the things that came out of it was the parks that you see now in the cities, nicer parks with recreation centers, places where people could gather. So this isn't anything new, but it's a matter of putting it in the right place where it can serve the right and needed population. Sometimes we need to build what that Field of Dream, they say you build it and they'll come. They'll come to West Caddo and West Shreveport. They have everything they need out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. I will say that the Cockrell Center is one of the better ones in the, I guess that's a state or a city facility, right? It's a wonderful facility in West Shreveport.
Yeah, all the ones that come out of the situation with the Cedar Grove riots during Citizens Committee study, they all in the city of Shreveport.
All right, we have Commissioner Jackson on the board, but he seems to have stepped out. Anyone else on the board on this topic? It's of course later on our agenda to consider forwarding this. Commissioner Talfero.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciated seeing it twice. So very informative and very obviously well thought out. So one of my questions that I didn't think about until I left the one-on-one meeting with y'all is that you know, all across the parish, all across the city, you know, I think we're always about taking care of our children and developing our children in the skill sets that are natural to them. And you know, and many people around the horseshoe know that softball, baseball, some other sports are very technical. They are a technical sport. And my concern is that how are we going to, or are we going to be able to distribute some of the money that we make off of this complex back into the community to develop our kids that are less technical in softball and baseball, but would be more technical in another sport. In other words, to help them, you know, find their skill set other than just playing, you know, b-ball. And so I'd just like your comments on that school of thought, Gary, or
yeah. Sure. We have spoken to the Major League Baseball. I spoke to Little League National this morning, and they both have programs for inner city kids to develop more underprivileged kids to play sport. We're going to be speaking with the school board about transportation to this facility and others as we go forward. But also with those come clinics to teach kids things, and particularly baseball. The Rangers, which we're in their fan base, are going to be helping us with this program programmatically. They don't right now have brick and mortar dollars, but programmatically and through supply baseball, softball, that's what it's called, and they will help with equipment, bats, balls, anything that they need. But then there's a lot of major league players existing and retired here that we intend to use in order to perform clinics for kids and also for coaches to develop a whole source of people to teach kids this game. Along with this field, obviously we have soccer fields, we have basketball, then this also will encompass our entire sports community and teaching skills in all of the other sports and things they're interested in. We have some other things we'll talk about later that are maybe music or art, not just 100% sports, but this sure would catch us up with kids and put more kids available to play this sport. So, yeah.
And just a couple things to add to that. So, and a key to all this is this brand new revenue coming in from the tournaments that we don't have today that we're going to turn around and put towards exactly what you're asking about. So we'll have significant new revenue that we can use to grow the game, to spend far more than we are today on helping to develop players that don't have that opportunity, that exposure today. And then also, every YMCA in the country has something called an annual campaign, and that is something that I oversee, and that is money that we use currently to help subsidize anyone in the community that wants to come to a YMCA but can't afford it. We will subsidize their membership fee. Anyone in the community that wants to participate in a YMCA program, we will utilize that money to subsidize the program fee. So we will leverage that annual campaign money and those annual campaign dollars also to further the development of our youth baseball and softball players in the community.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. I think this is a great opportunity. This is a building block that is long overdue. I remember having conversations with people in the baseball field or the skill set 4 years ago when I did the research on this specific type of complex. And as they say, the best time to plant a tree was yesterday. And we see what happened when we didn't plant that tree yesterday, and now we're unfortunately playing catch up. It's pretty soon that we'll be surpassing, those other complexes, or at least sharing in the ample opportunity for economic development and prosperity. Thank you for your presentation again, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Seeing no one else on the board, thank you all for coming in. Thanks for the presentation, and we look forward to seeing this on the agenda later today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, that brings us to reports. This is our next section where we've got administrative report as the first item there. You should have your report attached.
Dr. Wilson.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. A few
sir.
things today. First of all, I'd like to make you aware that we have a video recognition program for our tenure employees coming up on this Friday. Will to be aired virtually starting at 2:30 p.m. And last year's endeavor was quite successful, so we did it again this year. Prayerfully, next year we'll be back in the indoors at the event indoors, so we can have the same event. However, on Saturday we have a recognition program for our employees at Richard Fleming Park, starting at 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. to recognize our employees' tenure and celebrate that event there. So I invite you all to come out and join us for that event. We'll have food trucks out there to prepare the food for us, so it'll be easier process. No one had to labor over the grill to fix the food. And also, we should have at your station the first quarterly travel report that we present to you all. And we have a presentation today also from Mr. Jacob Haynes of the SJB Group on our master plan. So, Mr. Jason, you want to come forward and let us know where we are, what's the process, what we could expect in the master plan? The Parks Recreation Master Plan is what we're talking about. And welcome, sir.
Thank you. Hey, good afternoon. My name is Jacob Haynes. As he mentioned, I'm with SJB Group. I am a senior landscape architect and head of the Parks and Planning Division with that company. So we're working with the Caddo Parish Parks Department as well as SPAR to update the master plan. This master plan was last done in 2006. So it's a need of some updated information. So this master plan will take data that we're gathering right now. We're having a series of public engagements. We're also going through and doing a detailed inventory of all the current facilities that the Parks Department has. So we'll take this data, we'll look for specific trends, opportunities, the needs of the public, and then put this together into a list of recommendations for the department. The final plan, the action plan, will help guide future projects, capital improvement projects. It'll guide future partnerships, strengthen partnerships like what they already have with the YMCA. They're looking for other candidates out there. And then overall, strengthen the engagement with the community. And so with that being said, this process we're in right now with the community engagement is vitally important to the process. So we need everyone's input. We started public meetings last week, and we'll have those continuing this week. We have them every night this week through Thursday. We also have an online survey that's about a 10 to 15 minute survey that goes into detail with some of the questions and some of the needs that we're trying to assess. So you can find that info currently at caddoparks.org/masterplan. You can also go on all of the Caddo Parks and SPAR social media pages to look for those. We have some handouts as well with a QR code that you can scan for that survey that I can leave in the back for everybody as you're leaving. So appreciate your time and look forward to everyone's input. Thank you.
We have some questions for you, Mr. Haynes. First of all, Mr. Clerk, could you make sure that you send us a link to that survey? Send everybody a link to that survey. Thank you. Commissioner Young had a question for you, Mr. Haynes.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for being here, Mr. Haynes. May I ask, where is SJB Group based? Where are you?
We're based out of Baton Rouge.
Okay, great. As a Shreveport resident, I would like to tell you one of our community needs.
Sure.
So that you can incorporate into our master plan. 4 out of 10 children here live in chronic malnutrition. We do not have enough food for our people. We have a lot of land where we could grow food, but we do not grow any food. If we plant a lot of trees that bear food in our parks, that problem will change some. I would like to see that in your master plan.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions for Mr. Haynes? Seeing none, thank you for that update. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Haynes. Hey, Commissioners, I received a call today from one of our concerned citizens asking a question about the master recreation plan. And he was asking me, what do we do with the plan? And I said, the plan is our vision for the future. And since 2006, our plan has been programmed every year into our budget process to implement those things that the plan is calling for. And we will continue to do the same going into the future for the next plan that's developed. So without a plan, they're trying to go on a journey without a trip plan. You don't know where you're going to go. So, but our desire is to continue to evolve and make our parks the best that they could be. And that's why we're embarking on a journey to make our parks nationally certified. And now all coming into this process. So thank you for your indulgence and your attention on this matter. And certainly entertain any questions you may have for the administrator's report. This concludes my report.
Any questions for Dr. Wilson at this time? Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Wilson, can we have a committee meeting where that gentleman comes and then the commissioners can voice their wants and needs now that they know that this is available? Can we call that?
Yes, sir. If that's what y'all like to do, certainly we can do that.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
And also, I think Commissioner Chavez, the nice meeting at Southern Hills tonight.
I understand. I was going to try to make that, but I believe
Yes,
a prayer walk has come up, so it may be questionable if we'll make that.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Any other questions for Dr. Wilson? Seeing none, thank you, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Commission remarks. Anybody? No? Here we go. It just came up. Commissioner Johnson.
How long is it going to take to get this monitor fixed? I know we got some electricians somewhere.
I can provide a little bit of an update. Is that they have done a check on some of the equipment in here and determined, and when I say they, I mean the City of Shreveport's office who maintains this equipment. And the equipment itself is working. What's happening is the feed to it is not working. So the feed from the podium, the wiring, something is bad with that. They came to initiate the repairs, and it actually made it a little worse. This one went out. So I'm not sure how far along they are on that or when they will complete that project, but they are aware of it and actively working on it.
Okay. Because it's been over a month on that one. We'll see how long this one stays out. For long we'll be in the dog. So I know we had talked about a whole new system at one point in time. And it might be to the point where we need to go ahead and jump on the new system and forget about what this is doing, because you're just putting a Band-Aid on a system that's eventually is going to crash, and we could be in the middle of a meeting, in the middle of a vote, and everything goes out. So we need to make sure we take care of our equipment so that it's functional. I came in late on, I guess, one of the public comments. And, you know, it didn't surprise me that we will hear a lot of talk today about what happened over the weekend. But we have to realize that this has been going on for years now, decades. And just because it goes into one neighborhood doesn't make it more valuable. That child is more valuable than somebody that's in another neighborhood. I just want to make sure that we keep this on a level playing field, level whatever we're doing, because we've had many lives lost in Shreveport for senseless killings. And, you know, any killing is terrible. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that if someone gets killed in MLK area, Cedar Grove area, Moortown, their lives is just as important as anybody else in any of these other neighborhoods. And so I just want to make sure that we keep the focus of any life that's lost from a senseless killing is something that we should be jumping up in arms about, and not just because of certain neighborhoods. You know, that's my heartfelt. I've been talking about it for ever since I've been down here, about killings here and killings there, and sometimes it goes on deaf ears, and sometimes it's, well, what can we do? Well, just want to make sure that if there's something that comes out today, it should have came out when I talked about it years ago. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to let all my colleagues know that there's going to be a memorial community crisis walk starting at 5 p.m. today in South Highlands, starting at Petty Virginia Park and going down to Delaware. You're all invited to come. I agree with what Commissioner Johnson said. All lives are equal and valuable, and I also know that it's just a truth about human nature that we respond to things that happen closer to our homes. I hope that we can all start to respond to the crisis that is a generation old in our city. And I hope to see some of you at the walk today. Thank you.
Anybody else on communiques? Mr. Clerk?
Okay. That will bring us to the President's report. Did you have a President's report
I
today?
will just say that I share the views of Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Young on the tragedy that, all of these tragedies that have occurred in our communities over the last years and decades. And when it happens closer to your home, it does bring it more to the surface. I think that is, to Commissioner Young's point, that is a natural tendency. But we all need to think about what we can do to address these issues moving forward, to protect our young people moving forward. I know we've all been thinking about it, and I know that many of our programs are targeted towards addressing these issues, but unfortunately, it's been a challenge to get ahead of it. But I share our community's pain, and I know all of you around this table and in the audience share it as well. So that's all I have on that, and we can continue on, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, that brings us to old business, where we have none scheduled today, so we'll move forward to new business, where the first item that we have today is to authorize the introduction of ordinance number 6229 of 2022. That's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Capital Outlay Fund and the Oil and Gas Fund for the year 2022 to provide an appropriation for the construction of the YMCA baseball complex and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Motion to advance.
Second.
We had a motion from Commissioner Chavez, a second from Commissioner Jones. Would you like to comment, Commissioner Chavez?
Thank you, Chairman. Happy to report that this passed unanimously out of the Economic Development Committee. Not a lot needs to be said. They did a great presentation earlier, but I applaud Commissioner Johnson for requesting the increase. He spoke very highly of this, and it's sad that on the weekends, most of the Shreveport and Caddo Parish residents leave Shreveport and go to Natchitoches and Alexandria and Texarkana and spend their hard-earned dollars there, and we miss out. So it's nice to see that there's a plan in place, there's a property that's already procured, and that this is going to come to fruition, and that will change. And I'm thankful that we're a part of it. I really am. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am excited about the prospect of this opportunity coming to our community. I have a son that plays baseball, and on this weekend, a tournament that would usually be packed out at Shreveport-Dixie, the numbers are way down, typically because many of the teams that are traveling in our area are going to other areas to play. And I've been to these same parks that they talked about in the presentation, and there's nothing that entices me to say we're just going to stay in Ruston for the weekend instead of driving back and forth. I would rather pay more gas than stay in Ruston. And no slight to the city of Ruston, but for me as an adult, there's nothing keeping my attention outside of the baseball game. And so, I mean, we're just like children. We get bored, and don't want to just sit around in the hotel room playing on my phone. I want something to entertain me as well. Shreveport sits in a perfect spot location-wise, and we have the infrastructure, we have the entertainment infrastructure in place to keep the attention of not only the children but the adults as well. And so if I'm an adult and my child just played, we were out in the hot sun all day, I may want to go have a night out, with my spouse or by myself with my friends or whatever, and Shreveport has that in place. If there's nothing else we seem to do well, we know how to entertain. We know how to party. We know how to go out on the town at night. And so we have that. And most of these towns don't. But people will bring out their campers. They'll bring out their RVs to flood these parks out so that their children can be a part of this exposure. And I know very well, my youngest son is only 7 years old, but playing one fall ball season led him to a better baseball team because coaches are always looking for great talent to put together. And there are some young people within our city who need the opportunity to be exposed, and they can't get it. So we have to bring the exposure to them. They can't get out, as Mr. Harville said in the presentation, they can't get to Hoover, Alabama. They can't fly to Florida. But if we bring it to them, it'll be so much better. And I agree with Commissioner Epperson in the retrospect that we do need to make sure that we locate these type of parks all over Caddo. I'm glad that we have a spot in place and infrastructure in place where YMCA can go ahead and get this done now so we can create more revenue to build more parks like this. I would hope that the next complex we put in place would go in West Caddo, in West Shreveport, where the land is available and ready to go. And Commissioner Epperson, I'm working now with a group of youth football coaches to try to put a plan together so that when we come before the commission with more ideas like this, everything's in place and we have the economic impact that it can, that it involves. We have teams who travel from Shreveport every weekend to play every sport when we can be doing these things right here. This is not just a baseball issue. This is much bigger, and as he said, it's a $19 billion industry. Youth sports has become more of a business than I ever thought it would be. For me, it's get up Saturday morning, grab your equipment, we're going to the local spar, and that was it. We didn't do all that traveling and all the other stuff, but times have changed tremendously. And we can see from the Tre'Davious Whites, from the Greedy Williams, Brandon Gibson, these guys who have gotten out of here recently and that are playing in the NFL, we see what they're able to do with the least amount of exposure. So just imagine how many more children we can get out of the inner city communities, out of Caddo Parish, if we really gave them an opportunity to be exposed and to see other things besides what they're seeing on a daily basis. And so I think we cannot pass this opportunity up. I've seen, as a citizen, opportunities like this come up before our city and parish, and we passed on it, and we're still seeing the consequences of passing those things by. And so now, let's invest in our community, let's invest in our children, and I pray that everyone will support this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Lash, would you like to put Commissioner Jones on commission? Commissioner Young.
I'd like to make a substitute motion to englobo and advance new business items 11.1 to 11.6, which includes the agenda edition.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Young to englobo and advance 11.1 through 11.6, which includes the agenda addition added by Commissioner Chavez. The second was from Commissioner Chavez. Would you like to speak on that motion?
No, sir.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yeah, I just, I guess, can I ask a question on the temporary planning deal where it's talking about increasing? I don't necessarily have a problem with increasing the notification. Do we know any, I know it's gonna cost us a lot more money. Any idea what we're looking at? Having to, because we're now contacting and sending out letters for people in 300 feet. Now we'd be doing that up to 1,500 feet, that's correct?
That's correct.
So we would have to send letters, and so what kind of cost are we gonna be taking? Anybody have a clue?
If I had to guess, I would say very minimal costs,
Okay.
Commissioner, because we're just mailing correspondence. There's not that significant a cost.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Dr. Wilson.
Since we are mailing correspondence out, it's not that significant a cost.
Okay. And administratively, it's manageable?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes, sir. I'm gonna go ahead and take the opportunity. I think this is gonna include the agenda edition as well.
Yes.
Okay. I want you all to hear my heart with this. I'm short tenured here, but since I've been on the commission, I think I've raved about violence in our community every opportunity that I can. I want us to make sure that the momentum of outrage doesn't die after a week or two, because that's the cycle that we keep going through in Shreveport and Caddo Parish. We're going to be really upset, you know, and my heart goes out to this young lady's family. I'm a parent. I serve in the funeral industry. I never want to see a parent burying their child. White, black, doesn't matter. I believe children should have the opportunity to grow up and experience life, to be able to graduate from high school, all of the fun things that we have experienced.
Amen.
What I don't want to see happen, this happens in every community, whether we're talking about mass shootings, whether we're talking about black on black crime, whether we're talking about police brutality, it doesn't matter. We get outraged for 2 minutes. We'll get on our soapbox and we won't do anything. It's hard for me to say or accept that you want to do something, you know, and you give, you know, your rant, but then when it's time to come to the table and work, we don't. We have got to be consistent. Our children have to see us being consistent and giving everything that we have to fight for them. They notice when, you know, we're just up there getting upset for a few minutes and then we go away. We don't spend quality time with them. We don't create programs that keep them from being idle. It's got to be more than this sports complex that we're talking about. We've got to find every area possible to make sure that we keep the attention of the children. And I know he mentioned earlier that, you know, later on they're going to be looking at some music and arts things, but there are programs right now that are prolific with music and arts, and we need to capture those children as well. You'll be surprised how many young people that are involved in gang violence right now that are outstanding musicians, but they don't have anything that's in place that they are aware of that can keep them going, because everything you've got to pay so much for. Everything, you know, everybody's about making a dollar, and no one's about giving to their community. Each one of us should use our gifts for the sake of the ministry. That's whatever we're good at. You know, a lot of ministries thrive because they have volunteers within their ministry that don't charge the ministry to paint the wall at the church or to fix a plug, because I'm already an electrician, or I'm a plumber, so I don't have to charge my church $2,500 to fix something, because that's my reasonable portion of service. It goes beyond the four walls of your ministries. It goes outside into the community to say, hey, this is what I can do well. I'm really good at this. And I make a lot of money off of it every day anyway, so I can give this to this young person. I can help this young person out. But we got to do that beyond this week. We can't just be upset because we've lost this young lady, and then here we're going to be 3 or 4 work sessions down the road making more resolutions and ordinances when we need to be doing something in between that time. We've got to be more consistent and intentional about our children. Now, the truth of the matter is, we've lost a generation. The one that we're talking about that's doing all these killings, we've lost them. We've got to admit that they are gone. The young people that Patrick Wesley is working with in the T-ball program, that generation we have to capture. We have to make sure we keep our hands on them. The young people that are 15 to 17 years old that are doing these killings don't want to hear what we have to say. In their minds, they're grown men and women. I'm not saying we don't have to try, but we need to make sure that we're being intentional about making sure those that are between 3 and 12, we don't lose. That we don't take our hands off of them. If you see a young person struggling, we've got to step our game up, whether they live in South Highlands or Cedar Grove. And I need to make this clear. Cedar Grove and South Highlands are not that far apart. It's not. In fact, had that shooting happened in the parking lot where Dillard's is by Piermont, it would have said the shooting happened in Cedar Grove and not South Highlands. And the only thing that separates those two neighborhoods is Brookshire's grocery store. That's how close they are. So I know you've heard the shooting before now. Because I hear it. And I don't live that far from South Highlands. I can hear shooting everywhere. I can hear shooting in Sunset Acres. These military grade weapons they're using are very loud. So I know you hear it. This isn't the first time you've heard the gunshots. And then this isn't the first time you've heard about the tragedies. So we're close enough and we're right there where we're all surrounded about what's going on in our city. We have to be consistent with what we're doing. I want to see us go as far as we can to do what we can for juvenile justice, to make sure that they have the tools they need to be able to put preventative measures in place. We're so reactive as a community. Let's be more proactive. That's my rant for today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Jackson.
Where are we?
We have, there was a motion made to englobo and advance items 11.1 through 11.6.
Is that the entire agenda?
It's the entire new business section.
So that's all ordinances and resolutions? Okay.
No, not the resolutions, was it? Well,
No, yeah,
no, it is the resolutions, yes.
Okay. Is this appropriation for the YMCA? Is this a one-time appropriation?
Actually, it's over several years.
Over 4 years.
For 4 years.
And we're committed to doing $2 million?
Yes.
From what budget?
Oil and gas.
We don't have a FAQ. Nobody asked. Do we have the application submitted?
They came before the economic development.
Do we have an application submitted?
No. It's not a NGO, it's an economic development proposal.
Because when the medical school, when we agreed to do the thing with LSU, the Center for Sciences over at the medical school, whatever that center is,
we
have to
do
do
have
an
an application from them.
Say it again?
We do have an application.
So it's not attached. And the point that I'm getting to is the obvious double standard that we have when things are coming onto this agenda. I'm not opposed to doing things. I like for us to think outside of the box. But I have a concern when we just expedite certain things and we don't stop and ask questions on other things. When I've brought things down here, I've had to be asked to put an FAQ together. I've had to be asked, to make sure that we didn't receive that. Was there an impact study done?
Yes.
Impact study, where is it?
It's all in the presentation.
It's not on the agenda.
It was.
So I haven't received it. I hadn't seen it. And so the same level of questioning, and what I prefer to do, Brother Gary Lash, is I ask the questions here as opposed to wait to get in the final passage and playing this game of what I think we need to postpone. All I'm saying is give every member on this body the same respect and due diligence on their stuff that you have an expectation that we give on your stuff. Because we don't do that. We browbeat. We sick bloggers on folks. Now here we got a $2 million ask, but I got some folks telling me they can't stomach $6,000 to do murals. How can we be for one thing and we just have no, I mean, it's just boom, let's do it. It's on the agenda, let's go. All I'm asking us, I'm not asking us to vote this down. You know, we even play this game sometimes where some folks ask us, well, will you do it up to? Y'all remember that? There was this little fascination, obsession with, well, can we do it up to that amount, right? Am I lying, Doc? Jeff, you got the record?
There are sometimes motions made to add up to.
Up to. Can we do it up to?
That is a frequent.
Yeah. But I ain't heard that today. Why? And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying this is a bad project. I'm not calling out the individual who put it on the agenda or the committee for recommending it. All I'm saying is let's give each other the same respect. Resolution number 30. Resolution number 30. It got on the agenda with no discussion. In fact, we didn't even have it. Ain't that correct, Attorney Frazier?
Correct.
We didn't even have it. And there have been folks, and I'm not talking about Commissioner Stephen Jackson, I'm talking about other members on this body. So they may not say it, but I'm speaking for them. You didn't have the resolution in front of you, but Ken have to come over here sometime and plead. Just put it on the agenda so we can discuss it. No. And here we are discussing the resolution. I think it's needed, or some discussion on it is needed, but why can't we give the same respect to other members when they are just as passionate about an issue and need an agenda addition as well? Why can't we give them the same respect and due diligence and courtesy as a member? You didn't even have this when you voted on it. But it just flew on the agenda. They prop some folks up to come down here and ask, well, is it legal to put things to add to the agenda without the public even seeing it? I didn't get that. I didn't see that. I didn't see where that happened. I was late. Did that happen? Did anybody come up and ask, were we violating the open meetings law? No. Oh, okay. So I'm just trying to paint this picture of we need to treat each other with the same level of respect that others give. I may ask questions, I may agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, on this body, I have committed to treating everybody with the same level of collegiality and respect. Because if I was here trying to do it, Ms. John Glover be down here, well, is it legal? I think y'all usurping the public meetings laws. And is this legal for y'all to do this? And we had to get the parish attorney to explain what our process is for extending the agenda. That's all I'm asking us to do.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chavez.
I'll yield so we can vote, President.
You yield. All right, no one else on the board. Let's vote on engloboing and advancing items 11.1 through 11.6.
All right, and that motion carries with 9 in support, none in opposition, and 3 absent.
Mr. Clerk, I just want to mention, just for those in attendance and who may be watching, I just wanted to remind everyone that this is just a work session. We are just advancing things to Thursday's final agenda, where there may be additional conversation and discussion. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
And just as a reminder, those items that were advanced, those action items and resolutions that are advanced can be adopted during your Thursday regular session. Ordinances would lay over and not be available for final passage until your second meeting in May.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to communications and committee reports.
Anyone else on the board? Commissioner Jackson?
Yes. I had to step out and take a call, and I hate that Ms. Pojak had to leave. I started asking if they could stay around. I'm disturbed by the young lady whose life was taken, and to sound redundant up here about what probably has already been discussed. But a man who which we celebrate in this country every year, year in and year out, Dr. King, wrote an essay, and I encourage anybody who's listening to read at least the first paragraph or the opening statement in Dr. King's The Other America. And he says there's one America that's beautiful for a situation. It's overflowing with the milk of prosperity and the honey of opportunity. Millions of folks get by day to day without having to want or need. They have food for their stomach. They have culture and education for their minds. They have freedom and dignity. They have a decent place to live and stay. They enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But then he talks about there is this other America, and he talks about the daily ugliness of this other America, where folks live in rat-infested housing. They live in slums and blight. They go by day to day through the fatigue of despair. They are, relegated to the lowest rung of the economic ladder. And so when that other America seats its feet or steps over, because I heard Commissioner Jones say, there's not much that separates Cedar Grove from South Highland. In fact, Commissioner Jones, if you go to one of the schools in South Highland, Fairfield, if you look up at the school, it actually says Cedar Grove Elementary on it. If you were to 3, 4, 5 years ago check in on Facebook will tell a lot. A lot of folks will show you that the geotag, when they checked in at Betty Virginia Park, said they were checked in Cedar Grove, Louisiana. It was part of an annexation. Commissioner Epperson probably remember it was part of an annexation. Cedar Grove was a city by itself. So it's not much that separates Cedar Grove from South Highland. I call it North Cedar Grove. But we have to be just as outraged and concerned when these things happen on the other side of our community as we are. And it's not to take away from the sore and sorrowful tragedy of yesterday. And we have to hold everybody accountable. We have to make sure that these things, when they happen anywhere in our community, that we take them serious. That there are some expectations that we have to have other people in those communities as well. If we're going to hold folks accountable, that's an individual concern. But the level of attention and press and concern that I've just seen around one specific accident You know, that has to take place anytime a life is lost in our community. We can't afford to say, well, you know, that just didn't happen on my side of the track. Because what affects one directly and affects us all indirectly. We're all tied together in a single garment of destiny. And so, perishing Cedar Grove, and I've said this several times, a perishing Cedar Grove is a perishing John Southern Trace. And a diminishing Southern Hills is a diminishing Blanchard. Commissioner Hopkins, we're all in this issue together. And what we have to do from a policy-making perspective is we have to respect the ideas and wishes of everybody when we start coming down here talking about poverty and issues of safety and concern. We have to be respectful of everybody's ideas. And that's not to say one side has a better idea than the other, but our concern has to be tied together. And so I'm praying for that family. I'm praying for our Caddo Middle Magna family, praying for the entire Caddo family, because that was very tragic. But let us not forget that a 16-year-old was killed on Easter Sunday. And we hadn't had too much conversation. Oh, she just shouldn't have been, we put it off on the victim. She shouldn't have been out there with, but the life was lost. So let's buckle down. Let's keep each other's back. That's all. That's what I think we need to be doing, is we need to have each other's back, and do what's best for our community. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Any other communiques? Seeing none?
Move to adjourn.
Let's just check to make sure we don't have any citizens' comments.
I don't have any additional requests. Are there any?
All right,
Move to
Commissioner
adjourn.
Jackson just made a proposal to adjourn.